know, there was really only, in current days, Wolf was killed at Le Mans. As we talked about earlier, the safety part was at the Le Mans start in '69, you ran to the car and then you put your belts on. Well, he thought he would take off quicker than anybody, did not put his belts on. And Brian just said minutes ago as we were chatting that John Wolfe would have probably lived had he had his seatbelts on. So they're kind of key even in a car that's a flimsy aluminum chassis that weighs a little more than 100 pounds. Lots of crashing went on, but no one really died after that.
Not too much. I think a German driver died much later on in a 917 in a vintage race.
Hans-Dieter Blatzheim.
Yes, yes.
But they said he had a heart attack before he crashed.
Oh, did he?
So who would ever know?
But you know, David Piper, if you saw a photograph of David Piper's car when he lost his leg during the filming of Le Mans with Steve McQueen, there was nothing left. There was an engine, and that was the only recognisable part. And so that's why I complained to Porsche all the time about the fact that the chassis design was old-fashioned for that time. Of course, it was done in a tremendous hurry, and this was Ferdinand Piëch. It was really a copy of a 908. You know, it was the same basic construction, but at that time, Lola, McLaren, Ford were building great, strong monocoque chassis. And really, the 917, although it turned into one of the greatest and most iconic racing cars of all time, it wasn't really a safe car, you know, if you have a crash.
But I can pinch you that you made it through a car that crashed in the Racing in the Rain at the BOAC in 1970. So he's lived to tell that story, and a few more. Well, let me ask another question here. Of course, you probably answered this. This is Broadfoot Racing asked if you would have made any changes to the car. You know, in what changes do you wish you could have made? But one of them would have been safety, evidently.
Yes.
And ground effects would have helped. Of course, that came 30 years later.
Well, of course, there was no downforce, or very little downforce, and that was the problem with the first 25 917s that were built. And nobody really knew what it was. At the time, the drivers thought the chassis was twisting, you know, because when you turned into a corner, it was like this, and very unstable. And we thought the chassis was twisting. Now we know that it wasn't that, it was aerodynamics. And, you know, talking about John Wolfe, who died on the first lap at Le Mans, his co-driver, Digby Markland, spun in a straight line over the Mulsanne hump, because in those days, there were no chicanes. So here you have 4 miles straight, which terminated with a flat-out right-hander, and then a hump, a blind hump at the Mulsanne. Well, he spun going over the Mulsanne hump. He was spinning down to the Mulsanne corner, didn't hit anything, drove it back to the pits, got out, went up to John Wolfe, and he said, "Thank you very much, John, I have now retired from motor racing." And so the English drivers, it was Vic Elford, Richard Atwood and myself, the 3 English drivers in the Porsche team, all went to John Wolfe and we said, "Let Herbert Linge start the race. He was a Porsche test driver." No, I'm starting, it's my car." And of course he ran across the road, jumped in, didn't fasten his seatbelts, and was killed at the White House corner on the first lap. Well, the good news was he took out most of the Ferrari team at the same time.
I didn't know that. So that might have been what started the fight between the two manufacturers.